Gary Roberts. I live about 500 feet away in Potter Street. The question is directed to Mr. Hurst. On 4 times since you've come into office, I've asked you to attend or meet with me to discuss policing in Potter Street. Not only me, but members of the residents group that don't see a police officer from one day to the next. Every time I've been told you can't attend, it's for a special meeting or a special dinner or a dinner or a meeting. But no dates were offered where you could come and actually meet me, which I'm not happy with really. It seems to be that you seem to be a person that deals with people but not with the residents of my area, which is a shame, and I want to see if you can actually change that and come and meet with me and have a walk around Potter Street with me to discuss policing issues. Secondly, you attend passing out parades with ministers, and you have articles in your Harlow saying how great it is that you have more officers. But when you look deeper into the figures, the number of retirements and leavers and long-term illnesses, it appears that we've got fewer officers, resulting that when I ask if one officer can come and walk, not in a car, walk the streets, because Potter Street is an old and retired area with a lot of disabled people in it, and it needs an officer to walk the streets. When neighbourhood policing was there was no issues, because officers attended meetings as well, which was fantastic. Neighbourhood policing is no longer around, so I would ask you to provide one officer, hopefully 2, to actually walk Potter Street so that people see you and come up and talk to police officers, because they are, say scared, I don't suppose that's true, but they're not prepared to come out at night, and that is an absolute disgrace. But they should be allowed to come out to actually in the evenings, but they don't do it apparently. And so finally, you get a larger amount of council tax. You can't provide one officer for my area. Every year you've increased your council tax portion, but we can't get a police officer for the streets of Potter Street. Can I ask why, please? Thank you. Oh, sorry. And can I have a word with the inspector at the end, please?
Come in at some point on this, but I'll try and address some of your points to start with. So, firstly, I'm sorry if I've turned you down 4 times. That doesn't sound very good, and I apologise for that. I mean, I'm unlikely to attend a dinner, but coming for a walk around in Harlow is something that I have done several times, and next time I do it, we should make sure that we include Potter Street on that so we can see what the issues there are. Maybe, can I just ask you, I'll give you a bit of an answer, but can I also ask you to give us a bit of elaboration on what the issues on Potter Street are?
There's a lot of drug dealing along Latin Street, and one thing I'm going to bring up with the officer or the inspector at the end, well, I'll discuss, that's a personal matter, but I will discuss. But drug dealing along Latin Street, which is behind Carter's Meeting Potter Street, is now starting to get out of hand. And people are having their car looked at. is the word you use, but unfortunately some of them get nicked, which is not good.
No, it's not good. So vehicle interference and vehicle theft and drug dealing are issues that are happening on your road.
That's 2 issues that I want to bring forward, but I expect there are others.
Okay, thank you. So as I say, I'll make sure next time I'm in Harlow that we actually include a walk down and we actually get in contact with you and make sure that we meet up there and have a
Thank you.
talk about it. In terms of the passing out parades, yes, you're right, we have done a lot of them, and some of them we have been honoured by the presence of a Home Secretary or whatever. Of course we have retirements, people do leave, and people actually leave for other reasons as well, and we have had people leave for reasons of ill health. Overall, on average, we see somewhere around, I mean, plus or minus a few tens, somewhere around 250 people a year we've been hiring much more rapidly than that. So over the last 5 years, we've hired 2,000 additional officers. So the actual shape of the force has changed quite a lot. And we are in a situation now that something like 40% of our officers have been with us for 3 years or so, which is quite a lot of new people for chief inspector to look after and make sure that they are doing their job properly and effectively. We put a lot of money into training. But net, so taking the levers off the recruits, we are 905 people stronger than we were in 2018. And we are bigger than we have ever been by a couple of hundred.
Where are they in Harlow?
And we have also, that's also the case in Harlow. You
How
have
many have you got in Harlow then?
how many have we got in Harlow? I don't know that here. So in total we've got, in terms of uniformed officers doing local policing, we have 67 here in Harlow, plus of course additional 23 or so doing neighbourhood policing, and a town centre team of, are they part of the neighbourhood policing team, the 5? They are, yeah. And then of course we have investigators and CID etc. around as well. So those are just the uniformed officers who are actually looking after you permanently here in Harlow, which as I say is more than we've done before. The issue about foot patrol is an interesting one, because foot patrol is not, at the moment, hasn't been for a couple of decades, the most effective way of preventing crime. Criminals are motorised, criminals are on bikes. If you simply are on foot, you won't get to them. We do very much rely on the relationship with the public to report things, but equally well, we've had real success with the hotspot policing model, which actually is foot patrols in hotspots for crime. Or indeed antisocial behaviour. So that's where we have proactive patrols, actually working very closely with the council. Your council officers have been very supportive of that. In key areas where we have an identified hotspot for crime, and it's reduced crime quite a lot. Potter Street hasn't been identified as one of those hotspots. Perhaps we can look at that again and see what we're doing. But do you expect you want to say anything particular about Potter Street in the area around there?
I was just going to add around the fact that every ward in Harlow does have a dedicated neighbourhood policing officer. I can't remember who it is for your area off the top of my head, but the inspector is at the back of the room, so before you leave, we'll make sure that you get the name and contact details for your dedicated officer. They're always more than willing to come out, speak with residents, go on and walk around to understand the key issues in those areas so that we can put plans in place to tackle them and reduce the crime and ASB that you're saying is in Potter Street at the moment. I think Mr. Hurst has covered everything else in that question.
When I speak to your officer,
Would you give the microphone back, please?
sorry. When I speak to residents, I usually go to the shop in the Stoke, the old shop, one of the cheapest. There's a police officer there that I speak to when they put out a board. They tell me that morale in Harlow Police is on the floor. I ask them, are you able to come to Potter Street to patrol? And they say, no, we haven't got the numbers, and morale is on the floor. Now, are they telling me lies, or is that the case? Is that the case?
I think we just need to take that. I mean, that's feedback for us. I certainly haven't heard that morale in Harlow is that low. But thank you for raising it. I think it's something that we can continue. Do you want to say anything more on that? Sure.
And thank you, Roger. And Gary, thank you for your question. I think it's an important point that in all our communities we make sure that there is a visible presence. Now, of course, the council has its own community safety team, and what I would also say to you is one of the core priorities of the Blue Light Services, probation, criminal justice partners, widely and charities and the council is to tackle county violence and drugs. That is a Safer Harlow partnership priority. Now, the Safer Harlow partnership brings all those bodies together, has specific action groups to deal with those sorts of issues. And historically, there have been challenges in the past, and we know that you can never be complacent when it comes to that issue. The other point I would make is that working with the community safety team, we will make sure that when Roger is next scheduled to come to Harlow, we'll factor in a visit to Potter Street and liaise with the Residents Association there. I'm grateful that you've raised that point with us. I would just like to just focus on your morale point very briefly. I had the privilege of going out with officers in Harlow doing the late night, early morning shift. Those officers were out patrolling the streets, and not just in cars but on foot, in the early hours, dealing with gritty situations. And from what I saw, it was a very positive bunch of people, a young force in that station, that they're working hard for Harlow, and it was impressive to see.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'll start with e-scooters. I'll give you a personal view first, which is I just cannot see how they are compatible with our current traffic patterns. They're not suitable for pavements because they're too fast for other pedestrians, they're a hazard, and they're not suitable for the road because their centre of balance is in a very strange place, and they're not particularly obvious and people aren't wearing helmets. They are a motorised vehicle and they're not registered. I'm sure many of us have seen people riding them in a way which is quite scary, I think is probably the way to put it. And of course we very sadly had 2 young people lose their lives on an e-scooter in Glasgow in the very recent weeks, which was hugely traumatic for their family and the person did it. There are government studies, I'll give you a more official view now. There are government studies ongoing which are looking at how risky they are. They're looking at trials of them being used in particular ways, and the trials keep on getting extended. I don't know why, and they're not getting them the answer that they want to get, I don't know. But certainly our experience here in Essex, talking to our head of roads policing, is the number of injuries and indeed deaths per travelled kilometre is much, much higher than other forms of transport. Now, powered two-wheelers as a whole, so motorbikes, are much riskier than cars, much riskier than trucks, but e-scooters look to be much, much more dangerous than that. I personally would want to see them taken off the road immediately. We have got measures in place for taking them off the road when they're being used unlawfully. I think we've crushed a few hundred of them across the county, haven't we now? But that isn't, to me, the adequate response. You remember those Segway things that people rode? They proved to be very dangerous as well. They basically passed away, they're no longer around. I'd love to see the same happen to e-scooters. Not the same with e-bikes. As far as I can see, e-bikes are actually an environmentally friendly way of having a not very high-powered motorbike. But with e-bikes, I would have them registered like any motorbike. And I'd have the same rules around wearing helmets, because if you can travel 25, 30 miles an hour on a powered vehicle, you are putting yourself and other road users at risk, and we need to be managing that in the same sensible way that we do with other vehicles. The Chief Inspector may have some stuff to add about that, but that's my view, and that's our experience as I've been told it by the head of the roads policing. In terms of tolerance of shoplifters, we have no minimum amount here in Essex. You're right that the press is full of £200 and you get away with it. Certainly our policy here is that we're looking at people, not individual thefts. And if you go and steal £150 worth of goods from 6 shops, you've had quite a big day's take, haven't you? That is the sort of behaviour that we can see from repeat perpetrators of shoplifting, and it is our policy that we are wanting to take repeat perpetrators off the streets. I've had meetings recently with most of the big supermarkets, the Co-op, Tesco's, Asda, talking to them about what we can do better together to make It has been a real surge in shoplifting since COVID. It's taken off, and it's certainly being done by people who are doing it in an organised manner. I mean, referring to them as an organised crime gang probably would be a bit over-dramatic, but they are certainly organised, and they are certainly committing crime, and they are certainly using techniques that you would never have dreamt of. So getting elderly people to go and do their shoplifting for them because they look unlikely to be shoplifters, offering them money to do so, and then taking the stolen goods and of course putting it through their fencing, their resale networks to get rid of it.
Tolerance for shoplifting, as Mr. Hurst said, we don't have a tolerance. In fact, we're trying to make it easier for our frontline officers to charge shoplifters, and we've recently agreed with the Criminal Prosecution Service that for those cases where there is clear evidence that shoplifting has taken place and it's that person that's committed it, we no longer need to interview them, and we can actually proceed without an interview. So we're trying to actually make the process much quicker and easier in order to get people before the court. It can be sometimes a time process. Here in Harlow, obviously we've got the Town Link radios and the Town Centre team and community policing team respond to those calls and respond to shopliftings really quickly, so we have a much better chance of catching those that are responsible, and that seems to work really well in Harlow. I've worked in districts all around the county, and actually I've got to say those relationships here in Harlow are really, really good, and alongside the community safety team as well from the local authority. And also we're looking at the long-term problem solving around shoplifting, making sure that once we have got those convictions, that we're getting criminal behaviour orders on people and banning them from those particular areas if they're in a particular shop or a particular area of Harlow. But it's also about making sure that we're looking at the drivers behind that crime and working with the Safer Harlow Partnership to make sure that we're putting the right things in place. Because as we know, shoplifting might be because of financial concerns, it might be because of drug or mental health. There's so many different things that drives crime. So it's not just about convicting those people, but it's also making sure that we're getting the support in place to prevent and break that cycle of crime. In terms of e-scooters, they're illegal. We will seize them. In fact, we seized 2 this weekend in Harlow Town Centre. And we've also got the public space protection order that we can use to target anyone in the town centre that's using the vehicles when they shouldn't be. I don't think we can go
of policing in the town centre. About 4 years ago, I was one of the people that was campaigning for an increased presence in the town centre, the local council for that particular area. We subsequently had some discussions in one of the pubs, which is now subsequently been closed down in the town, when there was issues around, particularly in relation to drug use and also violence. There have been issues with violence. My reason for asking was I was in the town centre today, at about midday today, or thereabouts, and yet again there was groups of youths around and a fight kicked off, which was alarming for the residents of the cafe who were sitting looking out on it, on the issue. Fortunately it then dispersed, but there was no police anywhere around to be seen. So I just wondered what your views are with regard to the efficiency or otherwise, or the effectiveness or otherwise, of policing within the town centre. Thank you.
So, thanks for that. I remember our conversation in the clock tower.
Yeah.
That's right. And yes, we've made some changes then, and from the reports, it's a lot better than it was. I'm very disappointed to hear that you actually had that experience today. But certainly there's been a stronger police presence and a stronger coordination with the town centre operators, the trainers, etc. in the town centre. I think it's had quite a lot of success. But Councillor Charles may wish to add something.
Yeah, just before I jump into the issues around town centre policing, what the council does around tackling antisocial behaviour. Just on your first point around the e-scooter consultation, you've characterised that correctly. The council's cabinet, of which I think you was in attendance had a discussion and agreed to explore the possibility of having an e-scooter trial. It's an exploration of that idea and how that may work in practice. No decision has been made yet. And as part of that, all blue light services will be consulted as part of that process. There's a regimented, as you know, consultation process that local authorities undertake to understand these types of big decisions. The focus for the council is making sure that everyone can enjoy our public spaces, our walkways, our cycle tracks, and that will be a key factor as part of that consultation. When it comes to the town centre policing, very recently, because one of the hotspot areas, as modelled by the evidence-led approach by the police in Essex, the Gates area of the town centre is one of those areas where there has been issues around crime and social behaviour that has warranted focus. And as a result of that, and the hotspot police model, we were very pleased that the Police Fire and Crime Commissioner allocated additional funding to patrol that area. That was in the winter, and actually that has seen some success. When you look at the round picture of the town centre, our focus as a council, of course, is to ensure that we are, as we are already, the majority landowner in the town centre, and to acquire more land to deliver the regeneration ambitions. The key route to addressing antisocial behaviour and crime is the council's plan to regenerate the town centre. That, to us, is one of the key priorities, working in tandem with the police so that we can restore crime in our town.
There has been a species pretty general and tell me there is not a species, but I get calls almost on a weekly, daily basis from residents who they're either waiting for a bus or waiting to cross the traffic lights of cars jumping red lights. I've started conjectures whether you feel they're speeding or not. They seem to be quite speedy, so whether you can up your patrols to look at that a bit, or whether there's any suggestions you can come, because I can't think of anything we can put in place that would solve the problem there. It's a 41 now, but you know, I drive there along there at 40, but people are whizzing past me. You know, even tonight I was coming up the 414 to here, which is 50, and I was just under 50 at 45, and there was one car which was probably doing 70 in and out, weaving around. You can't stop it. But you can't really really catch it. But the other thing was, I've been on, I said just before, the community speed watch. And my little group has stopped doing it, because the frustration we have with it is that we spend an hour and we probably get at least 30 people that have gone between 40, this is on Station Road, which is a 30 mile an hour. They're doing 40, 50 mile an hour. We report. And as it is today, as far as I know, is they get a letter, they call again, they get a second letter. It's only the third time when something is done about it. We have had officers out there on occasion, but you know, they turn up and they've got all their nice painted cards, they've got flash jackets on, and you can see people turning down the bottom of the road, turning round. They're probably putting short or something. So I'm wondering whether somehow you can toughen on that. We stopped doing it now as a frustration. But you know, three times before anything happens, whether there's any suggestion you can do on that to encourage us to go back if you like. Thank you.
Well, I'd really like to encourage you to go back, because we know that the community speed watch makes a big difference to speed and behaviour. When I did it near a school, I live in Brentford, the school at the end of our road. I did community speed watch there as well. And you do get the occasional rude gesture from the people who are slowing down because they see you, but you get many more complimentary gestures from those who are behaving themselves and pleased to see you actually helping them to behave. Community speed watch is an educational activity, it's not an enforcement activity, and I think we kind of need to get that across to the groups in a better way, and can see us the best things are the average speed cameras, because people do seem to understand that that is an average, and that they're going to get caught on the whole stretch, as opposed to just a single photograph. And again, it changes behaviour, which is what we're trying to do. So that may be the way to do it, but I don't know. Have you had much experience?
I'll just come in briefly, Councillor Garnett. You're absolutely right around Gildon Way. Obviously, the funding that has already been secured by yourself and Essex Highways around the Casualty Reduction Fund has made a difference on that road. And of course, Highways is looking at certain areas along Gildon Way where there is a particular issue. There was a nasty accident only a few weeks ago where it was reported in the press that the individual in the van that exited Mayfield Farm Bakery was intoxicated, and that caused a serious accident that took place. And I know that Essex Highways with you are looking at that particular issue to improve road safety. The broader point is this, though, that in tandem with the police and the growing Gildon Park Residents Association and the Churchgate Street Residents Association, which border each other, we need to do a bit more community work. The perfect vehicle for that is the Community Speed Watch, and I certainly would recommend getting more volunteers in the community to join that initiative, because it does make a difference.
The police team will come out and do speed checks in any areas where residents feel that we've got regular speeding vehicles. Obviously they can't be everywhere at once, but where we can, I'm more than happy for the team to deploy. I'll also look at whether there's a possibility of that site being a true cam site. I'm not sure if it is or whether it can be, but it's something we can look at. But I'm a big supporter of Community Speed Watch, and I'd love to come out with your Community Speed Watch if you can get them back together and come out with you for the day.
And on your Harlow we had an article about buses stop running in the evening on Sundays, and I know for a fact that a lot of people who live there use the bus I used to, and go to work in the hospital. So hospitals are on shift, and they can't park, there's no parking, so they rely on those buses. And I just wonder, what is the police doing about this? I understand that the bus companies, why should they keep putting a bus there when they're getting smashed all the time? Insurance go up and a lot of money is wasted. So what is happening? What is the police actually doing about this? And the second one is knife crime. I know you said it's reduced, etc. But to tell you the truth, I don't feel that it's reduced, because every time you listen to the radio, the Radio 4, to the news, and look on internet, everything is about knife crime. My point is, it's okay for the police. I know they go to college and go to school and have those thing, and you go read, and then see they've got a knife, and then take the knife away. But I don't think that's working. For me, it's more about education. You need to educate kids in school. Instead of having a knife, why don't they have a few marbles to kind of get in with their friends? So, it's all about education. And the knife age of mistake, it hasn't had much of an effect, because kids still carry a knife. In my days, I wouldn't have thought about carrying a knife, but, and that's what happened nowadays. But I think it's more about educating and explain to kids what knife can do. This has ruined a lot of lives, not just the family, but also the person who's actually having to go to prison, and probably they're scared, that's why they're carrying a knife. And I think it's also maybe linked to gang. And so what is the police doing about gang in Harlow? Thank you.
Thanks. I think in terms of responding to your question, I'll probably pick up a bit about knife crime first and give you the big picture of what we're doing about that, and then someone else to come in. And as regards to the buses in Summers, I actually leave that response to Councillor Charles and the Chief Inspector, because I don't know. I have been spoken to by your councillors about what we can do with it, but actually on the underground response is there. So I absolutely recognise that you will be hearing a lot on the radio and on TV about knife crime. London We started a programme here which was pretty controversial back in 2018. We worked with some academics, a professor from Cardiff University, we worked with some people with experience in Glasgow, we set up a three-pronged approach to drug and life crime here, because when I did it for the first time in 2016, I said to the Chief Constable, what are you going to do about the drug gangs in Essex? And he said, there aren't any. So I got him the evidence to show that he was wrong, which was basically working with communities like this and having meetings and hearing, and the police took on board the fact that there was, whilst not the sort of problem that you would then see in London, there is a problem here in Essex. And we set up an approach. We work really closely with the National Crime Agency, high-end intelligence, helping them understand how to chop off the head of the drug gangs. We work really hard on the ground. You mentioned knife arches, we use those. That's not because we think that people go through knife arch and the people who are carrying a knife. Even criminals aren't often that stupid. But actually the way they're deployed with a thing called Project Soto, which means that you've got some uniformed officers with the arch, you've got some non-uniformed officers who probable criminals can spot, and then some slightly more professionally non-uniformed officers who are the people who are actually spotting people who change their behaviour. And it's the people who turn away when they see the knife arch who are wanting to stop. Yeah? So we're doing 5 times the level we used to of stop and search. So we are taking drugs and knives off the street. And then really importantly, back in 2018, we set up the Violence and Vulnerability Unit. It got copied. They're now called Violence Reduction Units. There are 20 of them around the country now. I just thought what we're doing was so impressive. They refined it. Okay, we've learned from them as well. It's been an iterative process and we've gotten better at it. But that basically is taking a public health style approach to knife crime. So thinking about what we need to do for everybody, messaging via social media. That was where the knife angel came. That was a big message to people about the fact that this is happening, you can talk about it, we are there for you. Stop it being anything wrong. Then on the other level, working with targeting groups, so going to those schools where we know there is a problem, doing drama groups there, expressing to the kids so that in a way they can understand how they can come to the police. Help them understand that the police aren't there just to prosecute. They're told by the gangs, you've carried drugs, they get spoofed into carrying drugs. They're told they're criminals, they can't go to the police. Yes, they can. The police want to help kids get out of these things, not just prosecute for them.
Over the bank holiday period, the Central Connect, who run their bus service to Sumners, have decided to now cancel their evening and Sunday service. People in Sumners, like all parts of the town, rely on public transport. That bus service is vital for that local community. So to hear there is a localised issue of vandalism going on, frankly, is appalling, and it's not what the neighbourhood policing team I know want to hear, nor is it what the community safety team at Harlow Council want to hear as well. The way this will work is that now we've come off the bank holiday, the community safety team in their community safety hub. Community safety hub is really useful because it brings a range of services, not just the police, the fire service, but other bodies, to work together with the council to deal with localised antisocial behaviour issues. So we're going to find out the details of this issue. We want to work with the bus operator, but also with the community, so that we can root out this localised issue of the minority vandalising and keep public transport links. So your point is well made, and we are as a council aware of this, and I know that the police will be looking at this issue seriously as well. Just on knife crime very quickly, we were very pleased as a council to help part fund the open gate technology that has been able to, in the town station and in the town centre, catch people carrying knives. On top of that, there has been a range of targeted work that police has carried out under, more recently, which was reported in the press, Operation Stronghold, where there were knife arches in the town centre, proactively with a range of officers looking to root out those people who think it's okay to carry a knife in our town. It's unacceptable, and we need to stamp that out. Your education point as well is a really good point. We're here in Parsons Academy. I'm pleased to say that Vic Goddard has worked very closely with the council to, one, educate us, but also help us understand how best to work with young people in the town around some of these issues, not just knife crime, but other issues that young girls are facing in the town. And the evidence and work that the school has done here has been really helpful in not just enabling the council, but the police to understand some of those concerns. So thank you for your point.
Thank you. I just wanted to add to that over the last 12 months, knife and crime in Harlow has reduced. Is it where we want it to be? No. There's still a lot of work that we need to do, and we need to work with community and partners and with community safety partnerships to make sure that we continue driving that, driving the education, driving the proactive work so that we can reduce the number of knife-related offences. The latest figures for the west of Essex do show that most victims and suspects are aged between 10 and 19 years old. So absolutely, the focus needs to be on education, and that needs to be joint education, not just with the police but other partners and agencies as well, to make sure that we're getting those messages across to the young people in our community. There's a variety of work going on around gangs. I know you mentioned gangs with knife crime. We have Operation Raptor, which is a special team that deals just with gang-related criminality, violence, and supply of Class A drugs. But we also have locally in Harlow 3 children and young people's officers, and they work with all the high and medium risk children that are at risk of exploitation. As we know, gangs do recruit children at a very young age, so we have 3 dedicated officers that work within Harlow to carry out that work alongside partners in social care, education, health, etc. Thank you.
From my perspective, part of our community risk management plan, part of the response element of that is we're doing a 100% review of our aerial ladder platforms, our 27-metre aerial ladder platforms. Some come to the end of their lives and looking for replacement and where they're located. So you may think it's a good idea to put an aerial on a station ground where you've got high-rise buildings, but the most common use for aerials is for exterior firefighting, not for rescue, and for an alternative means of putting a water main into a building. So that's the reason. So we're looking at that now. We've currently got 4 in the county. One is at Chelmsford, Southend, Grays and Colchester, and we're reviewing where they're going to go. So that's an ongoing piece of work, and all our specialist appliances, other than the 66 frontline fire engines, we know where they are, but lots of other specials we've got as well in the academy, reviewing all those as well. Speaking as a hazmat advisor, my day role, I get called out quite a lot to electric vehicles and hybrid vehicles with lithium-ion batteries, and all our crews receive a lot of training in that. I would suggest that the UK Fire and Rescue Services, it's a challenging incident to attend. Any fire within a confined space, any fire gas is a potential explosive atmosphere, and our crews are trained to deal with those potential outcomes and put in place those potential mitigations. So a compartment, as that tragic loss of those firefighter in that other incident, the issues we've got with lithium-ion batteries is why while the e-scooters have been banned on Transport for London, if you get a rapidly escalating fire, if you get a catastrophic thermal runaway, I'm catastrophising a little bit there, but if you've got a battery that's been damaged, they basically go to fire immediately. And we don't like them at all. We don't want people to charge them in their houses. We don't like vehicles, cars that are run with lithium-ion batteries. They've got protective cages, and we work quite closely with companies like Ford Dunson, so our crews have familiarisation visits, so they have an understanding of the things that are going to hurt them. But the key thing for us is we use copious amounts of water, which is a fire service tradition at a lot of incidents anyway. But at the end of the day, if it's in the open, we're going to let it burn, because 9 times there's no people involved. If we're going to, by approaching the incident, dealing with the incident, sometimes the hardest thing at an incident is to do nothing. But if we're going to put our people at risk, we're not going to do that. So that's an informed decision. But you are right, there is instances where you might turn up and you're not fully aware that's involved, but then you like to think our PPE, our training, the decision we make to open a compartment, which as soon as you open a compartment in a fire, you change those conditions. So that's a conscious decision. So we call it weight of attack and window opportunity in the fire service. We always work on weight of attack, how much water, the number of firefighters, the size of the jet. We talked about the air ladder platforms, all the specialist kit we've got there, and our incident commanders are fully trained to consider that, and we try to avoid those situations. At the end of the day, we can't remove the hazard totally because it's the nature of the job we do, but we can mitigate it to a point where it's a reasonable risk.